Okay, you have got me back to back, folks, here on day 4 of ESPC19, and I am here with the lovely John Patrick White.
Wow, I got a musical
You
introduction.
totally got a music. Well, I was singing earlier,
I
which
know.
So
I think it might get tweeted out. I think there was
for
a
goodness
promise of
sakes,
that.
bad. I was in show choir back in the day, so So, Mister, you've got so many wonderful things going on.
A few.
Yeah, absolutely, and I always love seeing you. Let's talk a little bit about the podcast first, since he's wearing the shirt.
Well, the other ones were dirty, so.
Well, yeah, right. I mean, you've got so many for the days and whatnot. So yeah, so bifocal.
Bifocal.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a podcast that myself and Jason Himmelstein do. I
That
don't know.
guy?
Yes, yeah, that guy. That guy who's not here.
I know. Miss you.
Yeah, miss you,
Yeah.
Jace. We've been doing it for quite some time. I'll give you a little bit of history on it.
Yes, please. Yes.
It actually started. I can't remember what the show was, but sitting in the speaker room, Jason and I bickering as we usually do about something.
Right. Yep.
And Dan Holm was there with us. This is before he joined Microsoft. He
Yeah.
was embarking on his last project,
Yep.
name of which is suddenly escaping me.
Fair enough.
And it was doing some media stuff, and he just said,
Yep.
"You guys should just really record this,
Right.
and put it out." And we're like, "No, are you kidding? Who wants to hear this?" And the first few steps we took with it were in real time, so we just basically schedule like a netcast sort of thing,
Right.
or a webcast, and then we'd put it out there. And then Dan joined Microsoft, and his venture went away. We kind of gave it a break for a year, I
Right.
think, and then we decided to start it back up as an audio
Yeah.
podcast, recording once a week, and we've been doing that ever since. So we've just published, I think, episode 129.
That's awesome.
And
IT
we've-
Unity.
IT Unity. Thank you very much.
I was like,
That's exactly what it was.
I was like, that's what you're, because I worked
That's
for IT Unity as
exactly
well.
what-
I was like,
No, every once in a while I'll gap on a name. So
hey, we all do. We all have our
it's-
moments,
it-
and
it-
it's jet laggy and day 4.
yeah,
so
it's a little
totally.
like that.
Yep.
But yeah, and we focus on basically it's Power BI news and Power BI news of the day, and interviews,
Yeah.
etc. What's going on? What do we think? And about half the time it's the weather where we are.
Fair enough. I
but,
mean, you
yeah.
travel a lot too, so you're
Yeah.
doing them in many places, not just like at home
That's
in
right.
front of with the all the equipment sitting there and stuff, right?
That's right. That's right. We were gonna record this week. We decided to do 2 next week because there's some news coming, I think. So, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's just you never know what you're gonna get,
Right.
and it's been wonderful. We've had some great participation, particularly from the Power BI team.
Yep.
We've had just about every PM on there,
That's awesome.
which is fantastic.
Who's
yeah.
the head of the Power BI team?
So it depends on what
guess-
part of that you want to
yeah,
talk
right.
about. So you go. It's part of James Phillips' organization.
Right,
So that's
yep.
Dynamics
Yep.
and the Power Platform.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if everybody realizes the Power Platform is not part of Office. It's nowhere near part of Office.
Right.
It's-
Yeah.
You got to get up to the one level under Satya before you talk to the same level.
Right. Okay.
So,
Yep.
so James Phillips is in charge of that. When you come down to the product area, which is Power BI itself, Arun Ulag is the name of the guy who heads that up. We just had him on the show at
Oh,
Ignite.
cool.
Yep. And Amir Netz is a technical fellow who basically invented a lot of this stuff, or he's got
Right.
the patents on an awful lot of this stuff.
Really?
And he's kind of
Wow.
I don't know exactly what his role is,
Sure.
but he's the
He's the wizard.
He's kind of head of engineering, sort of, but
Yeah.
he's the wizard,
Right.
Wizard there. So those are the 2 guys on at that level, and then there's an army of folks that are
Right.
awesome. They're really awesome.
Yeah. That's
under
cool.
that, yeah.
So with doing a podcast, so I have a podcast as well,
Yep.
and got a year in and learning on the way, and I guess for folks that are thinking about podcasting and thinking about starting one, because we have lots of folks in our community that have podcasts, and they're fantastic, but there's a lot of people who are like, ooh, I'd like to do that too.
Yep.
Any sort of a couple tips and tricks of like starting out of things you're like, ooh, I wish Jason and I would have done X.
Well, there's a million of those.
Yeah, right? Okay.
So, the first thing I'd say is go to the Ignite recordings and look up how to do a podcast that Jason and I recorded. So top of mind.
There you go, folks, right there.
We walked through an awful lot of the options for each one of the levels and,
Yeah.
and the kind of the decisions you need to make.
Yep.
And the decisions we made,
Yeah.
and maybe the decisions we thought we'd have made differently. So there's an awful lot of detail there.
Yep.
Don't be afraid to do it. A few tips and tricks. If you can do it with someone else, it makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah.
Because if you're me, they'll kick your butt and make sure you get the recording done. Because I never have time to do it. Jason's always, can we record
He's the
this week? And I'm
driver.
like,
yeah.
All right,
Right.
it's fine. But you can, one can spell off the other a little bit, and it becomes, I think, a little more interesting to the audience when you hear multiple points of view on
Yeah.
things too. So if you can do it in conjunction with somebody else, that's great. That doesn't mean you can't do it by yourself, as you obviously have the motivation to do. I'm just lazy.
I have a producer,
You have a producer,
and she's amazing. You're amazing. by the way.
that helps.
Yes.
It doesn't cost a lot to get a decent microphone and a decent
True.
webcam if you're doing video.
Yep.
We don't do video, but
Right.
get a decent microphone. Record everything twice using two different devices, because sometimes things fail, and it's really great when you get to the
Yes.
end of an interview and you realize you haven't been recording.
I did that with I just put out a Jeff Teeper video from Ignite.
Yes.
And one of my little end kind of bloopers was me checking to make sure I was recording, because I was like, I had that panic moment of like, we're having this awesome conversation, and I was like, we have to stop. And he was like, what's wrong? And I was like, I just need to make sure the recording button is on, It was, but still, it's always
Yeah.
good to check. But two devices, I like that.
Yeah, make sure you make two recordings,
Oh, I
one
see.
way or
Yeah,
another.
yeah, yeah.
We happen to use Zoom when we're recording,
Right.
when we're doing the joint stuff. That may change in the next little while, but that's what it is right now.
Yep.
And we use an app called Audacity.
Audacity, I use that too. Yeah, yeah.
Audacity,
I use that.
and the Audacity records my end of the conversation, Jason's end of the conversation.
Right.
And the other thing I would say, get a sound engineer. And
Yeah.
they'll make you sound a lot better. They'll take apart anything where you're talking over top of each other. They take out any little ums and pops
Yeah.
and clicks. They just know how to look at the waveform and do that. They
Yep.
don't have to listen to it through.
Yeah.
And we've got a fellow. If anybody's interested, we've got a fellow we work with. He's based in Belgrade, and we
cool.
just ship it off to him, and he gets it done and ships it back to us. Same guy that Andrew Connell and
I
Chris
see.
Johnson use.
For
Yeah.
MS Cloud Show,
MS
another
Cloud Show,
great
that's right.
podcast.
And they're the ones who were our mentors going along, because they blazed
Totally.
the trail for us. So
Yeah.
that's the other piece, is don't be afraid to reach out and ask for advice.
Yeah.
If you got a question, how did you guys handle this, or how do you do this?
Yeah. Jason and I have
Hit
had
us,
a
yeah.
few of those conversations
Yeah.
where we talk about, the different pieces of it, and he's like, "What about the marketing piece?" And I'm like, "What equipment are you using?" And so I love that.
Well, Jason's the equipment nut, so he's got
No,
all the
totally.
gear.
I know. He's always like, we're on the Teams thing, and he's like holding stuff up, and it's like, it's this one. I'm like, okay, right on.
He's got all the. I don't know how it works. No, I'm kind of the technical of the two of us when
Right,
we're doing
right.
Power BI stuff.
Yeah.
But no, when it comes to recording, it's all yours.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Total shout outs to CJ and AC.
Absolutely.
Who were some of the first MS Cloud show, and Jeremy Thake as well with his when he was doing that back with Hyperfish. So there's a lot of folks that encouraged me as well. I just did a episode 2 where we talked about what we learned this last year of doing it, and gave some shout outs, but also did sort of that wrap up of like, here's what was bad and here's what we learned, and I kind of like doing those episodes.
We'll
'cause
be
so
doing
many
that very shortly.
Yeah, good. Okay, that's totally awesome. And how many?
Predictions too. That's a fun one.
Oh,
and you can go
right.
back the next year and check on your
and
predictions.
see if you actually, absolutely. Yeah, and Christian Buckley as well, you know, with that. So that's super fun. And who designed your logo? It's super cool.
It was IT Unity, or Dan had it done by a friend of his, and I
Oh.
don't know
I bet
who
it was Keith.
Yeah, I think it was. I think the gentleman's name was Keith.
Yeah.
But I love it.
Yeah.
But the name is mine.
Oh, you came up with the name? Okay, fair enough. That's all, it's all iterative where we work together
That's
on these
right.
kinds of
Well, I
things.
love
So
the
that's
logo,
awesome. I
yeah,
do too.
yeah.
It's super cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm so glad he wore the shirt today. That was a happy accident.
It was an accident.
or a dirty clothing accident.
That's right.
So
No, it wasn't
no,
that.
let's
no,
not. No, sorry. Cut that, Shane. Sometimes we're live. Oops. Anyway, so talking about BI and talking about maybe switching topics a little bit. I, as an event organizer in the community, I love your Tygraph Twitter extravaganza. And let's call it something instead of extravaganza. So it's your Tygraph Twitter. I mean, it's BI. Like, what do you call the platform for that?
Power BI.
It's just Power BI, but
So-
it's a thing. It's like it's a product-ish sort of.
It is.
right?
It is. It's so. Talk about what Tygraph is for just a second.
Yeah.
We'll just back
Tygraph
up
is
on that.
awesome company.
Yeah, that's the company. That's the shirt I would normally be wearing if I wasn't
Right.
wearing this one at
Yes.
a show.
Yep.
And so the company, we build software that we deliver reports through Power BI.
Right.
We collect up basically all of the signals that are coming out of Office 365 and have built out massive data models that let you understand what's going on within your network, within your SharePoint
Right.
environment, within your Teams environment. who's communicating with whom at a group level. It's a number of these things. So if you need, if you want, it might be a sales pitch. If you want
Shameless plugs are totally awesome. So
a really advanced analytics for usage and adoption data for all of the workloads in Office 365. Most of the workloads in Office 365 at the very least. TieGraph for Twitter.
Yes.
Is it's kind of a side project that goes along this, and we do this at least right now. We do it in the public domain, so it's free essentially for people who ask for it. Not necessarily, if an organization wants us to monitor their social signals, we'll do that, and there will be a fee that goes alongside of that.
Yeah.
But for not-for-profit organizations, or typically when I'm speaking somewhere,
right.
I will monitor the Twitter tags for that event, as we're doing for this event.
Oh my God, I need to get on it.
There was a tectonic change last night. It was
really?
interesting. Yeah,
and the party, right?
Yeah,
Maybe?
that was. It was the awards.
And the awards.
Yeah.
Right.
And I know Louise managed to beat or take over Jeff's lead for most mentioned individuals.
Oh.
So she's very pleased with that. She's very pleased with that.
I have a question. Can you tell when somebody's using a bot?
Yes. Well, there's no automatic way to do it, but you can see from patterns of behavior that the report will actually surface.
See?
Well, we had
no cheating.
Here's an interesting example of that. There is, in that report, when you dig around there, it's about page 4 or 5. I can't remember what the number is. But there is a network diagram, and that shows the interconnectedness.
Oh, yeah,
the little lines between people, and like a node diagram.
Yep.
And at the SharePoint conference, not this year, but the previous year, we noticed an anomaly, because it usually looks a bit like a globe with a bunch of interconnected points.
Yeah.
And it started to look like the Death Star. Because over here, there was there was this one node that was off to the side, and it was surrounded by a bunch of nodes that weren't connected to anything else.
Oh.
Well, what's that? Drill in. It was basically a Russian bot network. It was they'd seen a SharePoint conference, or the hashtag was trending. One of these fake news sites. It was a fake news site. I went and looked at it, looked it up, but it was easy to spot it. Is my point. And what it had done is publish an article using that hashtag, and an army of bots tweeted the same. So that's one way to detect it. If a bot is only connected to one thing, then chances are, it's an automated tool.
Yeah, absolutely. We're supposed to wrap up in a second, but I have one more sort of techie question. So for you, and I know that you said that there's some announcements coming, but I think sort of right now in this moment, what's the most exciting thing you think is happening in Power BI?
In general, so there's Power BI. It grew up. It always was self-service analytics.
Yeah.
Very, very easy to get from data to insight quickly. 5 seconds, 5 minutes to wow, I think is their is the mantra. Without losing sight of that, they have been able to bake in really high-end enterprise BI. Now, Microsoft always had that. They just weren't always able to expose it in a highly consumable way.
Yes.
That's right.
Okay.
And they've been adding those capabilities to the back end of Power BI as we go. So all of that stuff is pretty exciting. And for us, they're adding technologies that make it easier for developers as well. So I'm very excited about the work they've done. I just had a meeting with the PM on this yesterday. Things called template apps, which let us bundle up our data models and our reports, put in sample data, and you can go and purchase these things from the Azure Marketplace.
Right.
So you can go, if you're interested in anything we do, you can go to Azure Marketplace, hit install. If you've got Power BI, you can be up and running and looking at sample data in a few minutes, and then you can just turn around and connect that to your own data if you subscribe with us.
Got it.
So, but that's awesome. Those sorts of things, that group, they're basically crossing a lot of T's and dotting a lot of I's. On the user side, they've just rolled out the Office ribbon in preview, the proper Office ribbon. They had a kind of a version of that themselves, but it is the actual Office. So they're doing an awful lot of work on the back end to just lift the roof, completely raise the roof on everything. So there's no one whiz-bang feature that I'm jumping up and down about, but it's the general approach that they're taking. I'm super confident in them moving
Sounds like
forward.
there's knitting that's happening,
It's
like
an
a
awful
lot of knitting.
It's an awful lot of polishing, and they're iterating quickly. Every single month we see new stuff.
Right.
We got a theme. I think we're getting a theme editor in the near future. So that's something I've been waiting for years and years
That's
and years.
exciting.
So,
Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. I love seeing you always, and your lovely wife, Holly. She's a darling, so mwah to her as well. So what's next for you? And then we're going to wrap this up.
I'm going home for 2 days, doing some laundry. and then SharePoint Fest in Chicago.
Wonderful.
I'm doing that, and that's going to close out the year for me. And then I take a break, I think, for a couple of months until the MVP Summit in March.
Okay, yeah. Addis was saying, he was like, that's my last event of the decade.
Well, it's true for all of us.
Bum,
But,
bum,
Addis
bum,
can
right?
say that. He's dramatic.
Yeah, he is dramatic. I know. But it's cool that it's a new decade, not just a new year, right? So, pretty
Yep.
neat. So, John, thank you.
Thank you, Heather.
You're a darling.
Happy to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody, thanks so much. Another live stream here at ESPC19. We'll be back.